They say kindness is the only language the deaf can hear and the blind can see. But what happens when kindness comes from someone who has nothing left to give? Tonight's story begins with a woman sitting in a dimly lit restaurant, tears welling in her eyes as she stares down at a bill she can't pay. And a single dad, exhausted, broke himself, yet holding on for the sake of his little girl, chooses to do something that would change both of their lives forever. Stay with me until the very end, because what starts as a quiet act of kindness turns into a story about healing, love, and second chances you never saw coming. The rain had been falling all evening, the streets glistening with reflections of neon lights. Inside a modest, family-owned restaurant, Emily sat hunched over her table, pushing food around her plate. She wasn't really hungry, hadn't been for days, but she needed a moment to escape the chaos of her life. Just one meal where she didn't feel like the walls were closing in on her. But when the check landed on her table, her chest tightened. Her hands trembled as she opened her worn-out wallet. Empty. A couple of coins jingled in the corner, but not nearly enough. Panic crawled up her throat. She had miscalculated, again. Rent was due, her job had cut her hours, and the last paycheck had already vanished into bills and medicine her mother needed. She could feel the heat of embarrassment on her cheeks as she tried to steady her breathing. People were laughing at other tables, couples sharing meals, children giggling. And there she was, alone, broke, humiliated. Across the room, Daniel watched her. He had been serving tables for the last 6 hours, his shirt slightly damp from rushing between the kitchen and customers. He was a single father, raising his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, on his own after his wife walked out years ago. Every night he pushed himself harder, saving every tip he could, just to make sure Lily had a better life. He noticed Emily's expression, the trembling hands, the way her lips pressed tight as if holding back tears. He didn't need to hear the words. He knew the look. It was the look of someone who had run out of options. And something inside him, something raw and human, wouldn't let him walk away. So when Emily whispered to him, I don't have enough. I'm so sorry. I'll find a way to, Daniel gently placed his hand on the bill, sliding it away without a word. His eyes met hers, calm and steady, and he simply said, it's taken care of. Don't worry. Her lips parted, but no sound came. She wanted to protest, to explain, to cry. But the lump in her throat was too big. All she could do was whisper, why? You don't even know me. Daniel smiled faintly, tired but genuine. Because once, someone did the same for me. Emily left the restaurant that night in silence, but the moment clung to her like the rain-soaked air. A stranger, a waiter, of all people, had stepped in when she had nothing. The memory of his kindness played over and over in her mind as she walked the long road home. No one had ever done something like that for her before. The next day, Daniel's routine carried on. He dropped Lily off at school, packed her a small lunch with a sticky note that said, "Love you always," then hurried to his double shift at the restaurant. He was used to sacrifice. Used to being the invisible one who served, cleaned, and endured rude customers without complaint. But deep down, he carried a quiet pride. Every dollar earned meant Lily never went to bed hungry. What he didn't expect was to see Emily again. She returned the next evening, not for food she could barely afford, but with a small paper bag clutched tightly in her hands. She waited until the rush had slowed and approached him at the counter. I know I can't repay you the way you deserve, she said, her voice shaking, but I baked these. It's all I can do right now. She set the bag of homemade cookies in front of him. Daniel looked at her, then at the cookies, and for the first time in a long while, his chest warmed with something other than exhaustion. You didn't have to, he said softly. I did, Emily replied firmly. Because you reminded me there are still good people left in the world. And that moment sparked something neither of them expected. Small conversations turned into longer ones. Her visits became more frequent, sometimes bringing little treats for Lily, sometimes just sitting and talking with Daniel during his break. Slowly, Emily found a place where she wasn't invisible. And Daniel, who had spent years pouring out his strength with no one to lean on, found someone who saw him, not just the tired waiter, but the man behind the uniform. The bill Emily couldn't pay had been just a piece of paper, but the kindness Daniel paid with it became something priceless, the start of a bond that healed two broken souls. By the end, Emily realized she hadn't been saved by money, and Daniel hadn't given out of wealth. They had both given out of emptiness, and somehow, that was what made their connection unbreakable. Because sometimes, the smallest act of kindness isn't just about helping someone through one bad night, it's about rewriting the story of two lives forever.